Dominaria United has just experienced a major leak. Over 100 different cards have been accidentally spoiled by Wizards of the Coast. And I have to admit, that's pretty embarrassing.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have an insane situation on our hands. I had recently been giving Wizards of the Coast credit for having no real leaks during this spoiler season. Well, apparently they rose to the challenge and decided, you know what, we're gonna be the ones to do a mega leak, and in a hilarious way. They put out the release notes for the set already. If you don't know what that means, every time Wizards puts out a new set, they go, there's going to be a bunch of rules issues. So we'll make this rules primer that explains individual cards and how the interactions work. And they give cards as examples. So this document has hundreds of cards listed in it. Now, it's just the text of the card. It doesn't have the images, but these are the official wordings of the card. So this isn't one of those blurry camera leaks. This is a full-on, we just got almost half the set leaked by Wizards of the Coast. Now, they deleted the document shortly after putting it up, but this is the internet. So it's already out there. I've got a copy of it. People have actually gone ahead and made digital mock-ups of the cards. So what we're gonna do, because I've been going crazy with the Dominaria United spoilers, if you didn't know, I covered every single spoiler that came out yesterday in a live stream over on my Hatcher YouTube channel, and I'm going to do another live stream there tonight covering everything from this document that we don't talk about in this video. I'm going to hand select the best, craziest stuff, and we're going to talk about it. But after that, we'll do a full-on live stream with all 140 something cards plus today's spoilers. It's gonna be wild. I am the #1 Dominaria United hype boy. I have Fantasy Geographic. The entire lore story of Dominaria United is located over there. And here we're going hardcore with the spoilers. So enough ado. Let's take a look at Karn's Silex. Karn's Silex is super powerful and also very important in the actual story of Dominaria United. Now, it's a 3 casting cost artifact, and since we're up here at the top of the card, I want to point out that all of the mock-ups that we're going to look at will have the DOMIN at the beginning of the card's name, but when you see the real card, obviously, it's just going to say Karn's Silex. So for 3 mana, you get an incredibly powerful legendary artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped, which it definitely needs to because of how strong it is. Players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. This is a really neat way to shut down Phyrexian mana. And also, it would stop you from technically completing Planeswalkers as well, which is a nice little flavor vibe too. But take a look at the second ability. Pay X and tap it, exile the Silex, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less, activate only as a sorcery. This does what the Silex is supposed to do. A massive blast that destroys everything. In fact, Karn is trying to use this Silex to destroy New Phyrexia. It's super epic, and I love the fact that we get to see the actual artwork that goes with the card, because unlike a lot of the cards we're going to look at, this one was spoiled in the story, and the Dominaria story is great. Okay, let us move on to the next card. King Darian the 48th. 1 white, 1 green, and 1 for a 2/3 legendary human soldier. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, and for 1 white, 1 green, and 3, you can put a +1/+1 counter on King Darian and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. And he also has sacrifice him. Creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This guy is absolutely nuts. He boosts all your creatures. It does cost a lot of mana to activate his +1/+1 and make a token ability, but still, he can crank out a bunch of little donks, but you can sack them to save your tokens. Making them untargetable and indestructible would make it very, very difficult for anything to wipe out all your tokens, barring some sort of effect that exiled them all or gave them like -X. So it creates a lot of resiliency, and the sacrifice effect goes great with the fact that he's legendary because you can run multiple copies. You don't care about sacrificing because another one's going to come along. So bear in mind, the artwork that we're looking at on these cards is just placeholder artwork for a lot of these cards. The Silex was the actual artwork, but for a lot of this, these are just random pieces of magic or other artwork that have been used temporarily. The next card we're looking at is Danitha Benalia's Hope, and it would be pretty fun if this was actually somehow the artwork for her, because we've already seen her, right? And she's a knight with her crazy stained glass armor, so all of a sudden just having her leading a hippo caravan would be amazing. But anyhow, this is a very strong card. 1 white and 4 for a 4/4 first strike, vigilance, lifelink. And when she enters the battlefield, if you want to, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield attached to her. That is absolutely bonkers for 5 mana. That's a beefy body. 4/4 first strike, vigilance, lifelink. And oh, by the way, if you have an enchantment or equipment that you want to use or is already in your graveyard, go ahead and slap it on her. She's ready to go. That's pretty impressive. And she is one of the characters that shows up in the Dominaria United story and makes a difference. So if you haven't checked that out already, you totally should. Moving on, we've got a pivotal character in the story, Karn, Living Legacy. This one's wild. 4 casting cost, Planeswalker. +1, create a tapped Power Stone token. He generates Power Stones. This is awesome. So Power Stones are artifacts with the ability tap to add a colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Isn't that crazy? So you can use it to cast artifacts and you can use it to activate any ability. So it's somewhat only usable by artifacts, but in other ways can be used by anybody. Then you've got the -1, pay any amount of mana, look at that many cards from the top of your library, put one of those cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library. That's nuts. You can dig super deep and only at a cost of -1 loyalty. And his ultimate seems kind of underwhelming at first, but it really is strong. -7, you get an emblem with tap an untapped artifact you control. This emblem deals 1 damage to any target. This can really get out of hand. It seems like, oh, only 1 damage, who really cares, right? But if you have a number of artifacts out, it's going to make a big difference. You're going to be able to ping, ping, ping away, and the fact that Karn has been making you Power Stones that you can also use to fire damage at your opponent is pretty sweet. The artwork that's shown here is actual artwork from Dominaria United. I don't know, though, if this will be the artwork that we see specifically on Karn. After that, we've got Primeval Spawn. This thing is bonkers. 1 of every color and 5 mana. So it's 10 mana, 10/10 avatar. If Primeval Spawn would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast or no mana was spent to cast it, exile it instead. It's got Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. Whenever Primeval Spawn leaves the battlefield, exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast any number of spells with total mana value 10 or less from among them without paying their mana costs. That's crazy. And it just says you have to spend some mana on it. If you spent 1 mana on the spell, then it wouldn't get exiled when it comes into play. But obviously they want to make sure you can't just cheat this into play super easy, reanimate it, and do some crazy shenanigans, because it's a 10/10 Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, and when it goes, you get to cast 10 mana worth of spells off your deck. This is like bonkers, broken, crazy, man. That's nuts. All right, moving on. We've got the Wham Speaker. It's Baru. He's back. We haven't seen him in, forever? Was it Future Sight? So long ago. So, Worm Speaker is 2 green and 2 for a 3/3 human druid. He has worms you control, get +2/+2 and have trample. He's a Worm Lord. And for the hefty sum of 8 mana, you can create a 4/4 green worm creature token. But this ability costs less to activate, where X is the biggest worm's power that you control. So let's say you would use this ability already and had a 4/4 worm. All of a sudden, this only costs 4 to activate to make worms. And if you have a big 7/7 worm, then for 1 green mana, he can be summoning up 4/4 worms like it's nothing. I love this conceptually. I think it's fantastic. I don't know if this is the actual artwork for the card or not, but I kind of really want it to be because it looks really cool. You've got this little lone figure with some kind of like dragon beast or worm facing off against him. So that's great artwork, but I have no concept of whether it's actually the real artwork. This is cool. Moving on, we've got Baird, Argivian Recruiter. For only 1 white and 1 red, you get a 2/2 human soldier that says, at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 soldier creature token. So, I mean, that condition is really easy to meet. I feel like you're going to be getting 1/1s from this very, very easily. And it's only 2 mana for a 2/2, right? The only thing that keeps this in check is the fact that it's a legendary creature, so you can't have 3 or 4 of these on the board just go into town. It would be too much, right? Then we've got Joda, the Unifier. He costs 1 of every color of mana. He has the ability, legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. It's a little bit weird, right? He wants you to have a bunch of legendaries out. All by himself, that would make him a 6/6, because he's a legendary, right? Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. He has legendary Cascade. That's awesome. Cascade, but keyed into legendaries. You can do some really gross and silly stuff with that. Obviously, it's limited by the fact that he's going to be difficult to get out with his casting cost being 1 of every color. But at the same time, that means, let's say you're using him as your commander, you now have every color in your color identity, which is really solid. Then we've got Urtai Resurrected. We saw Urtai in the story. I'm not going to say much about what he does because if you have not checked out the Dominaria United story, you need to. This is going to be relevant for the next year. We are going into this Phyrexian storyline for the whole year, guys. We're going to the Brothers' War. We're doing all that stuff, and I'm covering all of it on Fantasy Geographic, and you are missing out hardcore if you don't check it out. So, what's Urtai like in the game? What's his ability in this set? 1 black, 1 blue, and 2 for a 3/2 with flash. He's a Phyrexian human wizard. When he enters the battlefield, choose up to 1, so you don't even have to do either. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. Or destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. This is nuts. It can stop spells, activated abilities, triggered abilities, creatures, and planeswalkers. There's so much strapped into this, and it's all at flash speed. Obviously, it has to be to counter stuff, but this is just so bonkers and powerful. I am so gonna put this in my cube. This is amazing. Like, absolutely amazing as a concept for a card. And Urtai coming back as one of the Phyrexians after we haven't seen him for so long. It was such a neat and surprising return. All right, let's move on to the next card. The Academy Lore Master. 2 blue gets you a 2/3 wizard, which feels pretty good for blue already. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player may draw an additional card. If they do, spells they cast this turn cost 2 more to cast. I really dig this. It's got a Howling Mind kind of vibe where you're basically both getting to draw extra cards, but if you choose to do so, then you have to spend more mana for all of your spells. It's a very interesting trade-off concept, and I like it. After that, we've got Bladewing, Deathless Tyrant. Bladewing has returned, and he is insane. 6/6 flying in haste. Whenever Bladewing Deathless Tyrant deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, for each creature card in your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie knight creature token with menace. What? Like, dude, this thing swings the turn it lands. It's got haste. It's 6/6. It doesn't even have to hit a player. It can smack a planeswalker, and then you get knights equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. They're 2/2s and they have menace. It's like, whoa, that's so crazy. That is so beyond bonkers. He's just reanimating the dead as a tyrant, dragging forth their corpses. It's so epic, man. That's insane. All right. Well, what would you fight a dragon with? Maybe a flying airship like the Golden Argosy? This is forecasting cost 3/6 vehicle. Whenever it attacks, exile each creature that crewed it this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is crazy. It only crews for 1 mana. And what you could do if you wanted to was you can crew this multiple times. So you could crew it with each one of your creatures. And then when you swing with it, all of the creatures that are crewing it are exiled. I do like the idea of them all boarding it and disappearing, and then they come back. So you could use it for some weird shenanigans. And obviously you can just use it if you want to just have one creature pop back and forth to give you different benefits. This is a really cool card that features in the Dominaria United story, and reigns of Keldon warriors jump off of it and leap down on Phyrexians in an intense and epic battle that is covered in the Dominaria United storyline. And actually, this is the final spoiler card that we're going to talk about here in this video. Tonight, we're going to be talking about over 100 different spoilers over on my Hatcher YouTube channel. You're welcome to join me for that live stream. There's a link to the previous live stream where I did yesterday's Dominaria spoilers if you'd like to watch that, and a link to the Dominaria United lore on the screen. Thanks for coming by, my friends. Big shout out to my patrons. I will see you all later.